Okay, now we're recording, and then again, for those who are going to watch the video later, this is seven types of meaning in a video from Friends. So then again, the first thing we can find is affective meaning. So when Joey says, by the way, just giving context for those of you who don't know, Friends was a TV show from the 90s, very famous. And if you don't know that, I mean, you've been living like under a rock. And so this character his name is Joey. So the first thing he says when he sees the cat is, "Where is that?" Right? Like, what the hell is that? So the first thing we can see here is some kind of affective meaning. He sees the cat, doesn't like it, doesn't like the appearance, and his words kind of express that, right? The other person, the other character, which will be Ross, he also expresses the same thing. So just by the selection of the words, what the hell? What the hell is that? You can kind of get what this person means or his feelings and emotions towards the cat, right? Towards what he sees his friend walk in with. So what is that? What the hell is that? So that's clearly affective meaning. Moving on for a second. All right, so it's a cat, as Rachel says. So conceptual meaning. Conceptual meaning is the easiest one to analyze. Basically, everyone uses this type of meaning when they speak. So I actually didn't include a lot of examples because it's the easiest one. So when she says it's a cat, so the word cat, she's using it in the literal meaning, in the way that is most clear for everybody. Like, it's a cat, obviously. Like, you see it, it's a cat. It belongs to the conceptual meaning of the word cat, right? According to her at least. So he has every characteristics, every genetic characteristics, and every experiential characteristics to be a cat, right? So it's the literal meaning of the word cat. Simple as that can be. But then he says, that is not a cat, right? That is not a cat. So this is more related, or we can relate it to connotative meaning. Remember that connotative meaning has to do with the experiences of the real world of people. So when Joey says that's not a cat, it's because what he sees, the animal that is in front of him, doesn't belong or doesn't have the characteristics of a cat according to his experience. So his connotation of a cat, it's totally different from what he sees in the room. So that's why he says that's not a cat, even though it is obviously a cat. But his experiences from the real world reflect that he doesn't feel that that's a cat. It doesn't correspond to the experience that he has, maybe from since he was a child. It just doesn't belong, because normally, remember, cats, it's some characteristics of cats, from the concept of cats, normal characteristics for people is that, well, they have a lot of hair, right? Soft hair, and they are supposed to be warm because of that hair. But that cat that is being showed there in the video, well, doesn't really belong to the normal characteristics of a cat from the social experience of Joey. So we can explain that, but from the point of view of connotative meaning. We can say that the cat in the room doesn't align, doesn't belong, or doesn't fit the connotation of cat that Joey has. That's what we can say. So moving on. All right, we can see here in this section thematic and social meaning. So remember that thematic or thematic, whatever your pronunciation, doesn't matter, is related with the way you organize your ideas, the way you organize your sentences, what you put first in your sentences in order to express some kind of intention, some kind of meaning. So the first thing we can say from this sentence, excuse me, but this is a purebred show quality Sphinx cat. The fact that she is adding so many adjectives before the actual thing means that she's trying to transmit some kind of emphasis on how important or how high quality the cat is, right? And she begins with excuse me, like bringing attention, like uh, this is so and so and so. That means that she is organizing her message in a way that shows the emphasis on the quality of the cat, right? Because she could have chosen another construction. She could have said, "This is a Sphinx cat, and it is purebred and show quality," or something like that. A different construction, right? But she chose precisely this order of the adjectives in order to emphasize how important the cat is. The other aspect will be social meaning. Remember that social meaning is something, it's a type of, is what the words say about the social characteristics of the speaker. Social meaning is what the words say about the social characteristics of the speaker and many other aspects, right? Like if they are educated, if they're using slang, if they come from a very particular region. So in this case, Rachel is using very specific technical words about animal quality, right? About breeding, about cat breeding. So we can say at least that she knows a little bit about cats and cat breeds, right? Cat breeds or breed, races. We can say that, right? She's like knowledgeable in these kinds of things, and we can see this these terms: purebred, show quality, Sphinx cat, as belonging to a very special field. Remember that social meaning also distinguishes different fields, like different spheres. So in this case, it is distinguishing between the field of cat breeding. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. In terms of stylistics, okay, here it is. So social meaning, social affective meaning, and there it says it distinguishes dialect, time, this one, province, the language of law, the language of science, the language of advertising. In this case, it will be the language of cat breeding. It will be the language of animal quality. I don't know how to call that, right? It will be quite polite. Status will be polite, very polite. It's not colloquial because this is very technical language, right? So then again, thematic in the way that she organizes her message, and social in the terminology that she's using, right? Those two things. All right, let's move on. All right, the next one. It will be thematic also and social meaning. So let me see. Carlos already commented something like this. This is related. All right. So thematic. Let's begin with why it is thematic. See how the conversation goes. How much did you pay for that? And she begins by saying, well, it was a little extravagant, but this was a mistake from a typo. Let me get this right, but got. All right, it was a little extravagant, but I got a pretty good deal. So he's beginning the conversation, or she's beginning the answer by mentioning this information. That means that she wants to make the impact of the second part a little bit less, because she understands that she paid a lot of money for the cat, but she's trying to make the impact lesser by mentioning this information first. It was a little extravagant, right? She's preparing the audience. She's preparing the people that she's talking to, in this case, Ross. She's preparing him for the information that is going to follow. So she says, I got a pretty good deal. Like, this is positive, right? I got a pretty good deal. So the way that she organizes the information, first mentioning this and later mentioning this, transmit a meaning of trying to decrease the impact of the information. And then, well, he says, yeah, how much? And she says, $1,000. And Ross asks, on a cat? So we can say the word bucks, right? Social meaning in this case. We might say that this will be more from, if we check it from the side of status, we can say that this is more like slang. This is more colloquial, because she's using language that is normal for casual conversation, and especially in dialect too. Why dialect? Because saying $1,000 is something that is very American, especially very New Yorker, but let's say American in general. So when she says $1,000, she is giving information. She's giving you information about the geographical region from which she's from, right? It sounds very American, so you can imply that this is, well, a very American show, which is like pretty obvious. All right. Also, we can get so many more meanings just from this conversation, but let's leave it up to here for the moment and continue. All right, another example of affective meaning. And we can talk about the Sphinx cat for Rachel. So Rachel says, my grandmother had one of these when I was a little girl, and it was the sweetest thing. I mean, it was so cute. He would sit in my lap and purr all day long, and I would drag a shoestring on the ground, and he would chase it, right? So that means, remember that affective meaning has two sides. One side is how you show emotions with your language, and the other side is the emotions that some language evoke in the listener. So for Rachel, talking about Sphinx cats is remembering her grandmother, is remembering her childhood, and some pretty good memories about cats in general. That means that the connotation for cats for Rachel is very positive, right? We might say that because of her experiences. So the term cat, or specifically Sphinx cat, brings very good memories for Rachel, memories of her childhood, memories of her grandmother. So we can say that that is also affective meaning. It brings good memories to her. So we can, in this piece of the conversation, we can clearly see the emotions that Sphinx cat, well, cats, but especially Sphinx cat, bring to Rachel. All right. So far, how are we doing? Oh, good. If you have any questions, right there on the chat. All right, clear so far? Great. All right, the other type of meaning that we can find here will be reflective meaning. And this one, let me read it first, and then I will explain. So she says, I'm gonna go set up a little litter box for Mrs. Whiskerson. So Joey and Ross, they look at her. Well, what am I gonna call her? fluffy. So we're going to analyze the word fluffy in this case and why it would be inappropriate to call this cat fluffy. Normally, fluffy can be the name of a cat, right? It can be the name of an animal. But fluffy also means and also brings the meaning of having a lot of hair, right? Having soft, warm hair. So if you call this cat fluffy, the meaning of hair and warm is going to be reflected on the name and is going to cause a contradiction with the cat because the cat doesn't have any hair. He's not fluffy in the sense of the adjective. He's not fluffy at all. For let me give you another example, maybe from more close experience. And let's switch to Spanish for a second. Si ustedes tuvieran un amigo que, bueno, tiene un perro y ustedes nunca han visto al perro y les dijera, bueno, mi perro se llama Pelusa. ¿O cómo se imaginan ustedes que es ese perro? Yo me imagino, o yo pienso, que lo primero que uno se le viene a la mente es que es un perro peludo, que, no sé, tal vez es blanquito, es esponjoso, ¿cierto? Peludo. Fernanda, es exactamente, como peludo, crespo, tal vez un French Poodle, ¿cierto? El nombre, el mero nombre, va a reflejar características en el que recibe el nombre, ¿cierto? Entonces es significado reflejado. O por ejemplo, si ustedes escuchan que alguien tiene un perro que se llama pulgoso, ¿sí? Tal vez uno se imagina, bueno, tal vez no tiene pulgas, pero uno sí se imagina que es de pronto un criollo, no es de la mejor raza, sí, todo ese tipo de información que se viene a la cabeza que es reflejada desde el significado de pulgoso, ¿sí? So in this case, she says, what am I going to call her? Fluffy? Because fluffy reflects a lot of hair. Fluffy reflects some characteristics of cats that this cat doesn't have. So it causes a contradiction in between the character of the cat and the name that he has. So she has to go for a very weird name, Mrs. Whiskerson. That's why Joey and Ross look at her so weird because that's such a super fancy name. But she cannot go with Fluffy with a more normal name because, well, the cat is not precisely friendly for those names. So that would be reflected meaning.
Professor.
Yeah.
Morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Professor, I have a question about reflecting meaning. For example,
yes.
Reflecting meaning, it's also a word that have two different meanings. For example, if I say orange, that orange is a color, and orange can be to like a fruit, like yeah, something to eat. It's like reflecting meaning in this case.
Yes, it will be reflected meaning if the meaning interferes. I mean, this is not, me lo voy a explicar en español para que no haya confusión aquí en adelante. Cuando ustedes estén analizando en el video, no es que simplemente una palabra tiene más de un significado, entonces tiene un significado reflejado. No, tiene que verse en la conversación o en la comunicación que el significado esté interrumpiendo al otro significado. ¿Sí me entienden? Por ejemplo, en este caso, fluffy, el significado de peludo interrumpe con la descripción del gato que hay en el video. Y por eso, pues, se supone que es un efecto de comedia. Entonces, no es simplemente que una palabra tenga más de un significado, entonces, bueno, ya eso es reflejado, porque yo pienso que es así. O como, bueno, esto tiene dos significados, entonces yo creo que este se refleja en otro. No, tiene que verse la interferencia en la comunicación. Y normalmente, ¿cómo se ve la interferencia? Hay una falta de comunicación o de pronto hay necesidad de aclaración, como en este caso. ¿Sí ven? Ella dice fluffy y los dos, digo, Mrs. Whiskerson, y los otros dos la miran. Entonces ella tiene que aclarar, bueno, pues no le puedo decir fluffy, porque no cuadra, ¿cierto? Entonces, tienen que encontrar un ejemplo donde uno de los significados donde una persona esté tratando de usar uno de los significados de esa palabra, pero otro significado más fuerte interfiera. ¿Sí? No es solamente que una palabra tenga más de un significado, sino que uno de los significados interfiere con el otro. Eso es reflected meaning. Ricardo, is that clear for you?
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Professor,
Yes, Anna.
got another question.
Yeah.
What about if in the video there is or there are like two people with the same name, but that makes some fun for them because they need to explain about that they have the same name, but they don't know when the people is referring to one of them in the video because of the same name. That could be a reflected meaning.
No, not quite. No, that would be an interference of a reference. That would be a case of variable reference because the same name will have two different referents, and you'll be in the necessity to clarify who you are talking about, but not really reflected because the people, they don't carry meanings. It's just a difference in what person, what referent I am talking about. So that would not really constitute a difference in reflected meaning. Also, reflected meaning should be able to be explained only from the words themselves and in the situation. But let's not get so complicated. When you're talking about that specific case, it has to do with more than one referent, but not really a difference in meaning. You see, because we're still talking about a person. It's just that we're looking for the right person for the name, which is not precisely the same thing. So in that case, not quite reflected meaning. All right, moving on. Anybody else?
Professor, I have a question.
Yes,
But in Spanish.
no problem.
Profe, o sea que, pues cuando usted dice que se ve como interrumpido por otros significados, o sea, siempre es así, ese reflected meaning, o sea, o puede representar normalmente, o sea, lo que estoy tratando de decir, no sé, como que si el gato fuera peludo está bien, o sea, como que lo que se dice, lo que es, lo que está reflejando, no siempre se tiene que ver interrumpido. Me hago como entender más o menos, no sé.
Ah, bueno, pues normalmente no siempre se ve interrumpida la comunicación, pero lo que yo digo es cómo lo van a ejemplificar ustedes. Porque ustedes no pueden simplemente coger una palabra del video y decir, ah, esto tiene más de un significado, entonces es reflected. No, tienen que verse evidenciado en el video que un significado está interrumpiendo al otro. ¿Eso cómo se ve? Normalmente con fallas de la comunicación. O por ejemplo, cuando alguien hace un comentario de doble sentido y hay comedia, la gente como que se ríe. Por ejemplo, en los ejemplos que les explicaba en la presentación pasada, que hay mucho lenguaje sexual que tiene doble significado. Normalmente cuando una persona usa ese tipo de lenguaje, hay una interrupción de la comunicación. Hay alguien que se ríe, hay alguien que, bueno, se sonroja. Ese tipo de cosas me van a dar a entender reflected meaning cuando ustedes estén analizando, ¿sí? De nuevo, no es simplemente coger una palabra y decir, ah, eso tiene más de un significado, entonces ya, eso es reflected porque para mí se refleja. No, tiene que verse en la conversación, en la comunicación, tiene que verse reflejado que un significado se está reflejando en el otro, o sea, está causando interferencias, ¿sí? Eso es a lo que voy. Pero en la vida real, pues en la conversación natural, pues no siempre hay una total interrupción de la comunicación. A veces la gente simplemente sabe por dentro. Por ejemplo, ustedes imaginan si en una conferencia o algo así alguien usara la palabra penetración de mercado y empezara la gente como a reírse, no, pues sería una falta de respeto, ¿no? Pues la gente normalmente se ríe de para adentro. Pero ¿cómo lo van a ustedes ejemplificar en su trabajo? En que el video se note que el significado está reflejado. That's essentially it.
Gracias, profe.
No problem. Okay, moving on. Okay, so the other one will be affective, and other examples of affective and thematic meaning. So first of all, Ross says, check it out, almost 3 hours without dropping it. So check something interesting about this way of speaking. First of all, it doesn't have a subject. You see that this exchange doesn't have a subject? Almost 3 hours without dropping it. He's giving you a piece, this is an utterance that represents a complete sentence, but the complete sentence is not being spoken. The utterance is incomplete in quotation marks. If you remember when we talked about utterances, I told you that incomplete utterances represent complete sentences. In this case, he is using a fraction of a sentence in order to emphasize the time and the actions, but not really the people. He doesn't need to emphasize the people because it is obvious who is playing with the ball. It doesn't need to say, check it out. Joey, Monica, and me have been almost 3 hours without dropping it. He doesn't need to do that. He is emphasizing the action and the time in a thematic way because the subjects are obvious in the interaction. As for affective, you see how Rachel is smiling? She's not really expressing dislike or disgust, but her words make it really clear. Oh wow, congratulations, that's quite a waste of time. And she's smiling all the time. That means that the language that she's using is showing you clearly what she feels about the activity that they're doing. It's quite a waste of time. It's pretty clear from the interaction of these two that she's not completely in agreement with the way they're spending their time. So that would be one, affective in the way that Rachel is speaking, and thematic in the way that Ross is organizing his information when he speaks. So remember, affective is the way you show your emotions through language. Thematic is the way you organize your information. It has to do with syntactic constructions. Now let's move on. All right, collocative meaning. So if you remember, collocative meaning has to do with the acquired meaning that a word has when it is in the context of another word. In this case, I am going to analyze showcat. Showcat. In this collocative meaning, the word cat and the word show, they are going to acquire different meanings in the presence of one another. Show cat, in this case, and I'm going to analyze show, it doesn't have anything to do with the general meaning of showing, right? Because if you read show cat, so what is a show cat? A cat that you can show? Is that it? Well, no, it's a little bit more specific than that. So in the case of show cat, it's a cat that you can show in a show for cats, like in a special pageant for cats, right? In a kind of competition to see which cat has the most quality. That's the meaning of show, the specific meaning of show in this case, when you put it next to cat. And we can say the other thing about cat. In this case, cat in the presence of show is not just any cat. You see, when you hear show cat, you know by collocative meaning that cat is not just any regular cat, but a cat from a very specific quality, normally a high quality. It's a cat that it's worth a lot of money, for example, that it's being able to be shown to people and earn prizes in competitions, right? Show cat. So for example, if you hear the word show dog or show horse, you know that dog and horse are not just any dog or any horse, right? It's a specific, very specific kind of animal that can be showed or shown in a competition and be judged by the quality of his, I don't know, the quality of his breath, the quality of his breed, sorry, of his DNA. So in that case, collocative meaning. So remember, collocative meaning is the special meaning or the specific meaning that a word acquires when it is written or spoken next to another very specific word. So in this case, show cat, and we can analyze show and cat. All right, another one. All right, this is again another example of collocative and also reflected meaning. So in this case, I'm going to be very, very specific about reflected meaning, so pay attention to this one. So she says, so $800 and I don't call the cops because you're robbing me blind, right? I'm going to analyze it first from collocative meaning. From collocative meaning, robbing someone blind has a very specific meaning. So you know the meaning of robbing. For example, when someone goes to a house in the middle of the night and they take their stuff and they steal everything, that's the meaning of robbing. Or for example, in a bank, when there is an organized attempt to take the money from the bank, that is a robbery, or someone is robbing a place, right? But when you rob someone blind, this acquires a very different meaning. Let me go to a next slide for a moment, and let me show you. This is from a dictionary. Rob or cheat someone blind. It means to succeed completely in cheating someone and taking their money. So in this case, rob and blind together, they acquire a very different meaning. In this case, blind is giving rob extra meaning. So again, to succeed completely in cheating someone and taking their money. So let me go back for just a second so I can explain the rest. So again, blind is giving robbing extra meaning. In this case, robbing is not just robbing, is deceiving someone to rob them, is to fool someone with information in order to take their money or their belongings. That is collocative meaning because that is a special meaning that rob acquires in the presence of blind. You see? In the presence of blind. Now, look at reflective meaning. What is the most normal meaning of blind? Look at the image and you can tell me. Not being able to see, right? When someone is blind, he cannot see. But in this expression, rob blind, blind has nothing to do with the eyes. It has nothing to do with your ability to see. It has to do with being in what's the word? Ingenuous, being gullible, believing everything a person says, right? Being naive. That's what blind means in this case from collocative meaning. But you see that the meaning of the eyes, the meaning of not being able to see is so strong that it interferes. And that's why she's covering her eyes. You see? She covers her eyes like, oh, you're robbing me blind. But remember, the expression has nothing to do with the eyes. It has nothing to do with eyesight. And well, that serves as the basis for a joke. But you see, that's what I mean when I tell you that when you analyze the video, you have to show a very specific example where one meaning is interfering with the other. In this case, the meaning of blind, not being able to see, is very strong. So it kind of filters, it kind of goes into the meaning of robbing blind, you see? And you can see how she covers her eyes and she's like reflecting that, you see? That is reflected meaning. When a word has more than one meaning, but there is a stronger meaning or a stronger sense that interferes with other senses, you see? So when you're trying to use the word with the weaker senses, the stronger one is going to try to interfere. Well, not like something like active, because I'm speaking like senses have mentalities, but they don't. It's just like is the perception of the people, all right? That's what I mean with reflected meaning. I don't know, maybe this example was more clear, I hope, and it can help you when you're analyzing your videos. All right, for the moment, moving on. Okay, no, I finished for the moment. These are all the examples that I got from this part. So what I want you to do, is watch the video again. Watch it a second time, and tell me if you find any more types of meaning in the interaction that maybe I missed. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording right now so you can go do that.